We're at Big 12 football media days, but that doesn't stop us from talking about the NBA because the Dallas Mavericks, they completely missed on Luka's running mate, Goran Dragic. What happened with this situation and why is this such a bad thing for Dallas?
Well, the Mavericks had a very interesting offseason to begin with. They made a trade for Christian Wood, which was a big splash move. Turns out he's going to be coming off the bench now, which is very interesting. They signed JaVale McGee.
Yeah.
And it seemed like the one thing that they needed to add to the roster outside of, you can never have enough wings in the NBA. They always need to add one of those. But the one thing they were really missing was a point guard.
Yeah.
A backup point guard specifically because they lost Jalen Brunson to the New York Knicks. So the obvious choice was Goran Dragic.
Right. Very familiar with Luka, obviously.
They've played together on the Slovenian national teams. He's basically Luka's uncle, and he's probably the only person on the planet that can tell Luka to shut up at this point. So he was a big target in terms of the fan base, meaning he was the guy that everybody wanted to bring in to kind of be that secondary ball handler, be the guy that got the offense going off of the bench and kind of kept things going when Luka was taking a rest. And he's got a lot of experience. Everything made sense. And then something happened.
Yeah.
The Mavericks said, according to him, and this is a Spanish translation coming from a lot of different news outlets, and you can't take every word without a grain of salt necessarily, but it seems to be the case. The Mavericks' pitch to him was that he was going to play like 1 out of every 5 or 6 games.
Yeah,
and the rest
sparingly.
Sparingly. And the rest of them he was going to play more of a cheerleading role.
Yeah, now he's 36 years old, 35 years old.
Yes. And
That's not that old.
Yes, and he's had some health problems too, but he seems totally healthy. He looked great with the Slovenian national team this summer, and it's really hard to imagine why that makes sense. He decided to sign with the Chicago Bulls. That's fine, because he's going to play. He still feels like he can play 20 minutes a game. The Mavs could have used him to play 20 minutes a game.
Yeah.
But what it all boils down to is they just missed. Or there's one other possibility, they have something else in the works. Given the Mavs' history of off-season failures over the last decade or two, really, it's hard to imagine what that might be at this point, or if they'll succeed with that. But for now, it's just a big miss, in my opinion.
So it looks like the NBA is going to make the play-in tournament a permanent situation moving forward. Of course, the play-in tournament started because of the bubble in Orlando, and that was a very weird COVID-19 season. But I think a lot of fans are, starting to really love the play-in tournament, but then there's also some downsides. So do you love it or do you hate it?
I'm kind of torn, honestly. The thing about the play-in tournament for me is it kind of takes away from the impact of the regular season. I know it's an 82-game regular season, and it's a really long one, and that's fine. It's not baseball by any means, but it's still a long season. But those games still hold meaning, and you don't want to lose on a Tuesday night to the Sacramento Kings when you're trying to make you're trying to lock up the 3 seed.
Right.
Now it kind of takes a little bit out of it, and it makes those games a little bit less meaningful, and you can kind of make it up on the back end. Now, on the other side of that coin, I think it's great for teams who, maybe this will be the Mavs. I know they just made the Western Conference Finals, but this could be the Mavs in 2 seasons, depending on what they do with off-season moves over the next 2 years.
Right.
The teams that are on the bubble of making it, it's great for them.
Get that experience and the momentum going into the next season.
Right, and that's how Minnesota made the playoffs. It adds something.
Yeah.
It also takes away something. I think what it really boils down to in the end, though, is it makes the league more money.
Yeah.
And that's great. The league needs to make all the money they can get, expand the playoffs a little bit. I think eventually what they need to do is move toward get rid of the conference playoff structure, move towards a 16-team playoff. That's a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
And then you can have the playoff game play-in game makes a little bit more sense.
Yeah.
But until that point, it just kind of seems like some extra padding in their pockets.
Right. We are at Big 12 Media Day, but we're still talking about the NBA because there's really no off-season when it comes to the NBA, although I guess you could consider NBA Summer League kind of off-season, and we've talked about the importance of Summer League, but now that it's wrapped up and we've seen those top prospects play for their respective teams for the first time in those uniforms, what were some of your takeaways from Summer League this year?
It's hard to have takeaways about Summer League that are very sweeping because, for the most part, it's pretty bad basketball. And it's the guys that are the high draft picks that really stand out. And the guys that were the high draft picks this year have really stood out.
Yeah.
Paolo Banchero, who surprisingly went number 1. Everybody thought it was going to be Jabari Smith Jr. for a long time.
Right.
And then literally draft night, everything changed.
Yes.
And he's looked fantastic for the Orlando Magic.
If you're a Magic fan, you're like, yes.
Yeah, and he's everything. He looks so far like everything that they wanted and needed. Whether that translates into the regular season, he's facing the Miami Heat with Jimmy Butler and all those guys. Victor Oladipo trying to lock him down, as opposed to a bunch of rookies and two-way players.
Right.
We'll see. But I have a feeling he'll be okay. Jabari Smith got off to a little bit of a slow start in the first game, but he's gotten better and better as the Rockets have gone on. I think he just kind of needed to sort of settle down and take in the moment a little bit, because he was very excited to get to the NBA in general. And going to the Rockets and playing Paolo Banchero in his first summer league game, he had a little bit of a chip on his shoulder.
I'm sure.
Because he expected to go number 1 to Orlando.
You could see it on his face, even on NBA draft night. It was like,
he was not happy. So I think he was a little bit too hyped up for that first game, but he's settled down since, and he's looked every bit the part. He does things all over the floor. It's not just about scoring with him. He does things on the defensive end. He does things rebounding. He can really do it all. He's looked fantastic. And then Chet Holmgren,
everybody couldn't stop talking about him. Well, he was like the only top prospect playing for a couple of days since he got a head start, but it did seem like it was like Chet mania there for a minute.
Yeah, and he's a very unique guy. He's pencil thin, but he can do everything, especially on the offensive end. He can shoot from anywhere, so he's been really impressive. It's hard to tell who's going to be the best out of that group until we get about 5 years down the road.
Right.
But for now, all three of them look fantastic, and I think that the Mavs even have a little bit of a gem in Jaden Hardy, who has looked every bit the part that they expected. I mean, he slipped down to the second round to them, and everybody was shocked. And he's come out in summer league, and he's really shown what he can do. And he looks, after a couple of summer league games, like he could actually be a pretty big role player for the Mavericks next season in his rookie year. So there's a lot of exciting stuff happening.
Yes, there is.